do with the impact that the media has.
I was gonna say that the media, yes.
You know what I mean? Because, man, they were mandating people to buy his cars. Now they're trying to boycott him mandating his cars. And yeah, so I find that ironic in itself, Anthony. Just the complete 180 from supporting the man to, being completely against the man. And certainly that's his alignment with Donald Trump.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And the Republican Party as a whole. His takeover of Twitter.
Yep.
Right. So there's a lot there, but I think there's ways to boycott without having to, spray paint swastikas on people's cars and burning cars. I mean, I think there's a way, because if you go back, if you think about the effective protests of the 1960s, right?
Mm-hmm.
They had great energy, right, and great momentum, but they weren't violent.
No violence.
You know what I mean? Until we've seen things like the different race riots or the different riots, I don't even want to say the word race, but the different riots that, took place in Chicago and Watts and things like that throughout the 60s. But we see violence there, but generally people were protesting in a very vigorous, in a very vigorous, peaceful way that really kind of contrasts what we're seeing in today's protests.
Yes, absolutely. And I've been out there protesting, and I always say I do not support any type of violence. And I want to make that crystal clear to all the listeners that's viewing. We do not condone any type of violence. Now, with that being said, I will add this. I do believe in self-defense to the max, and I'm gonna leave it at that because we're going to that at a whole different time.
And you got to be careful there too. Now, somebody breaking your house, they got to have violent intentions before you do, pop that thing at them.
Hey, well, I'm gonna say this. As an elder once told me, God forbid that never happened, but I'm gonna make sure they don't go to court to be able to tell their side of the story.
You come to my house, we don't have a problem.
A big problem.
I got a family in there, I got kids and a wife in that house, so
exactly,
it's gonna be a problem. But anyway.
So they all right, and just rounding up a little bit, China and the United States.
Is that the new Cold War?
You know what I mean? Tariffs going back and forth. China also got a big stake in the electric vehicles movement and these tariffs. And when it comes down to China, and I do believe in, we got to kind of see how things go the first 100 days to 6 months. But I do believe that this is a strategy by both countries to eventually reduce the tariffs and reduce all these restrictions. So that's going to help America and the Chinese economy.
Two biggest markets in the world.
Yes, and I do believe between Trump and the president of China, Z, right? Xi. I do believe both of them got egos. They both want to stand their ground, and I get that. I respect that. I understand that. But I do believe that for this case, Trump is doing what's best for the country. And I do believe both countries will give in. I don't think the United States is just going to be, we're just a big guy, we're the big guy, we're the big guy, and China's just going to roll over. No, I got respect for China. I have a tremendous amount of respect for China. And I do believe that it will, kind of balance out later on, but it's kind of too soon to tell, in my opinion.
No, I agree with that. I think time will tell. See what these tariffs do. See what kind of money can start to generate. I know there's been a big focus on farming and farmers, and trying to keep the farming industry alive and vibrant. And I think there's been the focus on what I've heard people say, the focus on Main Street, no more necessarily on Wall Street. And that in itself is something I think we have to give the man credit for, right? I think we build in the middle. I think our country is stronger when we have a strong middle class. You know what I mean? Our not just our country, but our gross domestic product and all these other things. When we have a strong middle class, I think education and all those things are benefited when we have a robust, profiting stable middle class of people. But I don't know who to blame, but we're certainly starting to see the poverty and wealth gap, right, going two different directions. That middle class is being depleted. You're either one or the other, and certainly in California, people are having a tough time paying bills from one month to the next in California. So we've seen that divide happening here for sure.
Yes, absolutely. And we got to protect our middle class. And it's very important because, and this is what I tell people why we got to protect our middle class. If you're poor, and it's only poor and rich people, if the middle class get wiped out, based on history, the poor have never controlled the rich. Now, if the middle class is gone, who you think going to be controlling people? You think the billionaires, the wealthy, and the elites, you think they're going to be taking orders from the homeless population in the inner cities? Absolutely not. Who you think will be controlling the military and the police is going to be those elites. So it's very, very important that we protect our middle class. And as we protected our middle class, it's important that we talk a little bit about school and education.
Right.
Whoa, what is going on with our education in America?
Where do we start with that? Do we start at the bottom? Are we talking about reading and writing? I certainly could say one thing that I certainly believe is that we've just had an abundant focus on teaching basic reading skills. Right? We're no longer teaching, there is no longer a math and science focus. We're trying to help kids develop basic reading skills and basic writing skills. And I think we are losing the battle of critical thinking and problem solving. We're certainly losing the battle in higher order mathematics. Our kids, I'm not a high school math teacher or anything like that, so I can't see where the divide happens, but I gotta imagine kids aren't succeeding at algebra 2, trigonometry, pre-calculus. I have to believe that's part of the problem. And the focus on just on trying to make sure kids have basic reading skills. We're not pushing education anymore. We certainly have dumbed it down to a certain degree.
Yes, and we have, and this is how I kind of view the education system, especially the K through 8 system, and what's going on. It's a conflict of power between the education system. You would think, just in general, for those that's not in education, we both work in education, you would think teachers had a lot more say-so to curriculum and things what the kids need. But however, politicians are affecting our classroom. And a lot of these politicians are are setting standards and goals that do not benefit the child for critical thinking. They're not focused on a lot of the reading and sciences. They're focused on getting the student there and pushing them through. That whole leave no kid behind, which I'm not for leaving no kid behind, but they're forgetting the middle. I believe school needs to be focused with the parent and teachers. Parent and teachers should have the power. However, only parents have the true power, and the problem is a lot of parents don't know that. So let me just break this down for those out there that's listening. You have a school district. You have a school board, you have a superintendent, you have a principal, you got a bunch of teachers, a bunch of administrators in between. The school board sets the standards for the superintendent. The superintendent is pretty much the executioner for the school district that is following the school board's directives. So, and I tell people this, if you're upset at your local superintendent, you're upset at your school board because your superintendent takes orders from the school board. Now, with that being said, you got politicians that's directing a superintendent. The superintendent controls the principals. The principals control the teachers, and a lot of things is all about checking the list. Do this, do this, do this, and it's not really focused on some of the critical thinking aspects and some of the things that will benefit the child-specific and critical thinking elements that's going on.
Education has become politicized.
Yep.
Right? The politicians control education much more than the educators. When that happens, what we see is, what I think I'm seeing is a lack of creativity at the teaching level.
Mm-hmm.
You see a lot of teachers being called out to class on administrative leave, a lot of times for things that are absolutely made up.
Yep.
We've lost the focus of, like you said, we've lost the focus of critical thinking. We've lost the focus of creativity. I think that's a key word. Creativity and imagination in education, and we strictly are focusing on, hey, let's get those kids in the classroom, because that's where the money is at.
Yep.
The average daily attendance, and depending on where your district is at, will determine, in the characteristics of your district, will determine the amount of money that you get in terms of federal funding. And if you got kids in seats, you got money that's coming into your school, into your district one day after the next. So we've gotten away from the creativity of education, and we've certainly focused in more on the political aspects of education, and that's what's driving education today.
Absolutely. And even in education, it is so broad. We talk a little bit about K through 8, and we have a mix of AI in education. And just first, what's some of your thoughts about AI in education? Good, bad?
It makes education very fact-based, right? Yeah, you can teach a computer or a calculator to know anything, right? So those are just raw data and facts. I think, again, AI takes out the creative aspect that certain teachers bring to the table. Learning experiences, I think, are taken away when you bring in AI. I don't think you can get that experience of that teacher or those teachers who have gone through the education system, who have managed their way through the education system and have become teachers and can now teach that skill to their students, right? I think that's something AI just does not bring to the table. So I see the creativity again of education being lost through the idea of artificial intelligence.
Absolutely. And I just want to say this. When it comes to AI, there's some aspects of it that can get scary. I'm not going to go into all of it today. However, it's important that we learn how AI operates. And it's important that if we do utilize it in the education, is that we're utilizing the AI programs to help us further our education, and not necessarily cheating or, AI, write this book report on, on the solar system, and they just automatically put it up and you turn it into your teacher. That aspect of it, no. But for you to grow and learn about the future, because, and this is what I tell you, whether you like it or not, AI is here. AI, robots, is here. So you got to learn about it so you know what to look out for and what to adjust to.
You see our classrooms now, right? Our classrooms got digital TVs. Every child has an iPad, a laptop. Teachers have iPads and laptops. So artificial intelligence is there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Most of what we do in class is on the internet.
Yep.
It is digital. It's not very much book-based education anymore. So we certainly see that AI has its foundation already in education. Where I think the problem will come in is when you say AI is there to teach now, right?
Yeah.
Not just there to, and there's nobody there to be creative and use imagination and teach evaluating and analyzing and synthesizing